Welcome back to another story on Infidelity Tales Lab. Before we begin, tell us, where in the world are you watching from? Now, let's dive into today's story. Chapter 1. The Perfect Family. Dale Matthews stood in his mahogany-paneled study, examining the quarterly reports spread across his antique oak desk. At 42, he had built Matthews Security Consulting from nothing into a multi-million-dollar enterprise specializing in corporate protection and private investigation. His steel-gray eyes, which had intimidated countless boardroom adversaries, now focused on the numbers that confirmed another record-breaking quarter. The sound of laughter drifted up from the garden below. Through the tall windows, he watched his 7-year-old daughter, Emma, chase butterflies across the manicured lawn of their sprawling estate in Connecticut's Gold Coast. Her golden curls bounced as she ran, reminding him of his wife, Angela, when they'd first met 15 years ago. Angela Matthews, formerly Angela Cahill, had been the ambitious young nurse who caught his eye during his recovery from military injury. She was 25 then, beautiful and seemingly devoted. Now 37, she maintained her striking appearance through expensive treatments and designer clothes that Dale's success afforded her. Yet lately, something had shifted in their marriage, a distance he couldn't quite place. Dale's younger brother-in-law, Shane Dennis, had joined their family circle 3 years ago when he'd completed his surgical residency. At 34, Shane was everything Dale wasn't. Charming where Dale was intense, sociable where Dale was reserved, and recently divorced after his wife left him for emotional unavailability. Angela had insisted they help Shane get established, even arranging for him to rent the guest house on their property. The irony wasn't lost on Dale that Shane, who specialized in pediatric surgery, had become Emma's favorite uncle. The little girl adored him, often spending hours in his company when he wasn't at the hospital. Dale had encouraged this relationship, believing Emma needed positive male influences beyond her often absent father. But tonight felt different. Dale had returned early from a business trip to Montreal, arriving home to find the house unusually quiet. Angela had claimed she was visiting her sister Cheryl, but Cheryl had called looking for her just an hour ago. Shane's car wasn't in the guest house driveway, though Dale had seen it parked behind the stables, an odd place to leave it. Dale's military training and investigative instincts, honed by years of exposing corporate espionage and infidelity, had taught him to trust his gut. And his gut was screaming that something was wrong. He moved to his desk drawer and retrieved a small digital recorder, one of many surveillance devices his company manufactured. As footsteps echoed in the hallway outside his study, Dale quickly activated the device and slipped it behind a stack of books. The door opened without a knock. Angela entered, her hair slightly disheveled, wearing the same dress she'd had on that morning, but with the top button undone. Behind her, Shane appeared, adjusting his shirt collar. "Dale." Angela's voice pitched higher than usual. "I thought you weren't coming back until tomorrow." "Change of plans," Dale replied evenly, studying both their faces. "Where have you two been?" "I was showing Shane the new irrigation system for the back gardens," Angela said quickly. "He's thinking of having similar work done at his place." Shane nodded, but Dale noticed a slight tremor in his hands. The same tell Dale had observed in lying witnesses during depositions. "The system is impressive, Dale. Very thorough." "Indeed." Dale's tone remained neutral, but his mind was cataloging every inconsistency. The back gardens were visible from his study window, and he'd been here for 2 hours without seeing anyone. Angela's dress showed grass stains that weren't there at breakfast. Shane's hair had leaves in it. "Where's Emma?" Dale asked. "Sleeping over at the Jennings house," Angela replied. "Matthew called this afternoon asking if she could stay. I said yes since you weren't expected back." Dale nodded slowly. The Jennings were their neighbors, and their daughter was Emma's closest friend. It was a reasonable explanation, yet something about Angela's delivery felt rehearsed. "Well," Shane said, backing toward the door, "I should let you two catch up. Thanks for the tour, Angela." After Shane left, Angela moved to Dale's side, placing her hand on his shoulder. Her touch, once electric, now felt calculating. "How was Montreal?" "Productive." Dale turned to face her fully. "The Du Bois merger went through. We'll be expanding into European markets." "That's wonderful, honey." But her smile didn't reach her eyes, and Dale noticed she was scanning his desk, her gaze lingering on the stack of books where he'd hidden the recorder. "Angela," Dale said softly, "is there anything you need to tell me?" For a moment, her mask slipped, and he saw something like fear flicker across her features. But it was gone so quickly, he almost questioned whether he'd seen it at all. "What would I need to tell you?" she asked, her voice steady again. "Nothing, I suppose." Dale pulled her closer, studying her face. "I'm just tired. It's been a long day." That night, as Angela slept beside him, Dale stared at the ceiling and replayed every interaction, every micro-expression, every inconsistency. His phone buzzed with a text from his head of security, Corey Crane. "Package delivered to your office as requested. Content secure." Dale had asked Corey to install additional security cameras around the property while he was away, a precaution he'd been meaning to take for months. Now he was grateful for his paranoia. Tomorrow, he would review the footage. Tonight, he would plan. In his 20 years of investigating betrayals, Dale had learned that the most devastating discoveries often came not from grand gestures of deception, but from small, seemingly innocent lies that unraveled to reveal much darker truths. As he drifted off to sleep, Dale's last conscious thought was a promise to himself. If his suspicions proved correct, he would show no mercy. He had spent his life protecting others from betrayal. If his own family had betrayed him, they would learn why Dale Matthews had never lost a case, and why his enemies never forgot his name. Chapter 2. What Emma Saw. The next morning arrived with deceptive normalcy. Dale sat at the breakfast table, reading the Wall Street Journal, while Angela prepared his coffee exactly as she had for 15 years, 2 sugars, a splash of cream. Emma's empty chair served as a reminder of her absence, the house feeling hollow without her chatter. "I'll pick up Emma around noon," Angela said, not looking at him. "The Jennings are taking the girls to that new indoor playground in Stanford." "I'll come with you," Dale replied casually. "I want to talk to Matthew about the security contract for his firm." Angela's hand trembled slightly as she set down his cup. "Oh, that's not necessary. I'm sure you have work to catch up on. Nothing that can't wait." Dale's tone brooked no argument. Family comes first. After Angela left for her morning yoga class, Dale retreated to his study and powered up the laptop connected to his new security system. The high-definition cameras Corey had installed provided crystal-clear footage of every angle of the property. He started with yesterday afternoon, fast-forwarding through hours of empty lawn and garden views until movement caught his attention. At 2:47 p.m., Angela's Mercedes pulled into the driveway. But instead of coming to the main house, she drove directly to the guest house where Shane was waiting outside. Dale slowed the playback to normal speed. Angela and Shane embraced immediately. Not the casual hug of in-laws, but the desperate clutch of lovers reuniting. Shane's hands roamed her body as he pushed her against the car, their mouths locked together with urgent hunger. Dale's jaw tightened, but he continued watching with the detached professionalism that had made him successful. Evidence required complete documentation. They moved inside Shane's residence, disappearing from the exterior camera's view. But Dale had anticipated this. His installation included interior cameras in the guest house, positioned as security measures that Shane had agreed to months ago. What he saw next confirmed his worst fears. Angela and Shane's affair wasn't new. Their practiced intimacy spoke of months, possibly years of deception. But more disturbing were the fragments of conversation the microphones picked up. Dale suspects something. Angela panted between kisses. "How can you tell?" Shane's voice was muffled against her neck. "He's watching us differently, more carefully." Angela pulled back, her face serious. "And Emma? What about Emma?" "Last night, before the sleepover, she asked me why you and I were playing wrestling in Uncle Dale's study. She said she saw us through the window when she came back from feeding the horses." Shane went pale. "What did you tell her?" "That she must have been mistaken." "But Dale." Angela's voice dropped to a whisper. "If Emma tells him what she thinks she saw." "She's 7 years old," Shane said. "Kids imagine things all the time. This is Emma we're talking about. She's sharp, just like her father. And if Dale starts asking questions." Dale paused the recording, his blood running cold. Emma had witnessed their affair in his own study, the sacred space where he conducted his most sensitive business, where he'd built his empire. The violation felt like acid in his veins. But worse was the implication of their conversation. They weren't just worried about being discovered. They were discussing Emma as a potential problem to be solved. Dale fast-forwarded through more footage, looking for any other relevant interactions. At 4:23 p.m., he found it. Emma had returned home earlier than expected, running through the front door, calling for her mother. She'd searched the house before heading to the window of Dale's study, where she'd stood for several minutes watching something that made her small face scrunch in confusion. The timestamp showed this was exactly when Angela and Shane were inside the guest house. Whatever Emma had seen the night before in the study, it had been significant enough for her to look for more evidence. Dale's phone rang, interrupting his investigation. "Mr. Matthews." The voice belonged to Janet Morrison, his secretary. "There's a Dr. Harrison on line 1. Says it's urgent regarding your daughter." Dale's stomach dropped. "Put him through." "Mr. Matthews? This is Dr. Harrison from Greenwich Hospital. I need you to come in immediately. There's been an incident with Emma." "What kind of incident?" Dale's voice remained steady despite the ice forming in his chest. "She was brought in by your brother-in-law, Dr. Dennis. She collapsed at the Jennings house. Dr. Dennis is recommending immediate surgery. It appears to be severe tonsillitis that could lead to complications if not addressed urgently." Dale was already grabbing his keys. "I'm on my way." The drive to Greenwich Hospital took 12 minutes, a trip Dale made in 8, his mind racing through possibilities. Emma had been perfectly healthy yesterday. The timing felt wrong, too convenient, especially given what he'd discovered about Angela and Shane's concerns. He found Angela in the surgery waiting room, her face tear-streaked and hands trembling. "Dale, thank God you're here. Shane says her tonsils are severely infected. She could die if he doesn't operate immediately." "Where is Shane now?" "In surgery prep. He's the best pediatric surgeon in the state. Emma's in good hands." Dale studied his wife's performance, noting the slight overacting, the way she avoided direct eye contact. "When did Emma start showing symptoms?" "This morning, after I picked her up. She complained of a sore throat in the car, then started running a fever at the Jennings. By the time we got here, she was barely conscious." Before Dale could respond, Shane emerged from the surgical wing, still in scrubs but without the cap and mask. His expression was grave. "Dale, I need to speak with you both." Shane's voice carried the weight of devastating news. "We did everything we could, but the infection had spread too far. I'm so sorry we lost her." The words hit Dale like physical blows. Angela's scream of anguish echoed through the hallway as she collapsed into Shane's arms. Other families in the waiting room stared in sympathy at the grieving parents. But something in Shane's eyes, a flicker of satisfaction quickly masked by professional sorrow, triggered every instinct Dale had developed over years of reading people. This wasn't the face of a devastated uncle who'd lost his beloved niece. This was the face of a man who'd just solved a problem. As Angela sobbed against Shane's chest, Dale stepped back, his mind shifting into tactical mode. If this was performance, it was elaborate and risky. But if Emma had truly seen something that threatened Angela and Shane's secret? "I need to see her," Dale said quietly. "Dale, no," Angela whispered. "You shouldn't remember her that way. I need to see my daughter." Shane nodded reluctantly. "Of course. But please prepare yourself." They led him to a small viewing room where Emma's body lay covered by a white sheet. Dale approached slowly, his heart hammering against his ribs. When Shane pulled back the sheet, Dale saw his daughter's peaceful face, pale but unmarked by any signs of struggle or distress. "What exactly happened during surgery?" Dale asked, his voice clinically detached. Shane launched into a detailed medical explanation about complications, bleeding, and cardiac arrest. But Dale was studying the body with the same analytical precision he'd used to examine crime scenes during his military service. Emma's skin tone, the positioning of her hands, the absence of any medical equipment or monitoring devices. Everything suggested she'd been lying here for hours, not minutes. "I'll need to make arrangements," Dale said finally. "Of course," Shane replied. I'll handle all the paperwork. Family privilege. As they left the hospital, Dale's phone buzzed with a text message. The number was unfamiliar, but the message made his blood freeze. Your daughter is safe. Meet me at the old warehouse on Harbor Road at midnight. Come alone, or she dies for real. A friend. Dale glanced at Angela and Shane, both still maintaining their grief-stricken performances. Neither seemed to have noticed his phone. For the first time since entering the hospital, Dale allowed himself to hope. But if Emma was alive, that meant the elaborate deception was even more sinister than he'd imagined. And if someone else was involved, someone with access to both Emma and inside knowledge of the plan, then the conspiracy ran deeper than just an affair. That night, as Angela sedated herself with grief and wine, Dale prepared for the most important meeting of his life. In his jacket pocket, he carried his Glock 19 and a small recording device. Whatever game Angela and Shane were playing, the rules were about to change. Chapter 3. The Revelation. The Harbor Road warehouse district at midnight was a graveyard of rusted metal and broken dreams. Dale parked his BMW in the shadow of an abandoned textile factory, his military training automatically cataloging escape routes and potential threats. The anonymous text had led him here with the impossible promise that Emma was alive, a hope that warred with his investigative instincts screaming that this was likely a trap. He moved through the darkness toward the specified warehouse, his Glock drawn but held low. The building loomed against the star-scattered sky, its broken windows like dead eyes watching his approach. A single light glowed from within, casting long shadows through the industrial skeleton. Mr. Matthews. The voice came from behind a stack of shipping containers. A figure emerged, a woman in her 50s with graying hair and the efficient bearing of medical professional. I'm Dr. Grace Weaver. I used to work with your brother-in-law. Where is my daughter? Dale's voice cut through the night air like a blade. Safe. But first, you need to understand what you've stumbled into. Grace stepped into the light, revealing tired eyes and the trembling hands of someone carrying enormous guilt. Shane Dennis isn't just having an affair with your wife. They've been planning something far worse. Explain. Now, Grace pulled out a tablet, its screen casting blue light between them. 3 months ago, Shane approached me with a proposal. He needed someone with access to the hospital morgue and crematorium, someone who could provide death certificates and handle difficult cases discreetly. Dale's finger tightened on his weapon's grip. What kind of cases? People who needed to disappear. Shane has been running a very specialized operation. Fake death for clients willing to pay enormous sums to escape their lives. Witness protection for criminals, husbands dodging alimony, executives fleeing fraud charges. The profit margins are astronomical when you can guarantee someone a completely clean slate. The pieces began forming a horrifying picture in Dale's mind. And Emma, your daughter witnessed Shane and Angela in your study 3 nights ago. But she saw more than just an affair. Grace swiped to security footage on her tablet. She saw Shane photographing documents from your safe. Corporate secrets, client files, military contracts. Information worth millions to the right buyers. The footage showed Emma standing in the doorway of Dale's study, watching as Shane used his phone to photograph papers spread across the desk while Angela served as lookout. The little girl had witnessed industrial espionage, not just adultery. Emma's too smart, Grace continued. Shane realized she would eventually tell you what she saw. So they arranged for her to die during routine surgery, then planned to sell her to one of Shane's international clients. People who pay premium prices for untraceable children. Dale's vision went red at the edges. You're telling me they planned to fake my daughter's death and traffic her? Shane has done this before, but always with adults who consented to disappear. Children are a new venture for him, more profitable and more permanent. Your wife provided the family access he needed. Where is Emma? Grace gestured toward the warehouse. Inside, but there's more you need to know. Shane isn't working alone. He has a partner, someone with connections to organized crime, families, and international trafficking networks. Someone with the resources to make people vanish permanently. They moved toward the warehouse entrance, Grace's keycard unlocking multiple security doors. I've been documenting Shane's operation for months, trying to find a way to expose him without destroying my own career. But when I learned they were targeting a child, the warehouse interior was divided into several sections. A medical facility complete with surgical equipment, a forge for creating false documents, and in the back, a series of small rooms that looked disturbingly like cells. The holding area, Grace explained grimly, where deceased clients wait for their new identities and transportation. In the last room, Dale found Emma sleeping on a small bed, breathing peacefully. She looked exactly as she had that morning, healthy, unharmed, and very much alive. The relief nearly drove him to his knees. "Daddy." Emma's eyes fluttered open as he knelt beside her. "I had the strangest dream. Uncle Shane gave me medicine and told me I was going on a special trip." Dale gathered his daughter into his arms, feeling her warm breath against his neck. "It's okay, sweetheart. Daddy's here now. Is Mommy coming too?" Emma asked innocently. The question hit Dale like a physical blow. His daughter still trusted the woman who'd sold her to child traffickers. "We'll talk about Mommy later, baby." Grace appeared in the doorway. "Dale, we need to move quickly. Shane expects me to transfer Emma to his partner's facility tonight. When I don't show up." "Who is Shane's partner?" "Gustavo Guerra. He runs a legitimate import-export business as cover, but his real operation moves people and information across borders. Shane has been feeding him corporate intelligence for months. Your company's client list, security protocols, everything." Dale's mind shifted into tactical mode. How many people know about tonight's operation? "Just Shane, Angela, and Guerra's transportation team. They're expecting Emma to be delivered to a warehouse in Bridgeport at 2 a.m. Dale checked his watch, 12:47 a.m. He had just over an hour to turn the hunters into the hunted. "Grace, I need you to make that delivery." "What?" "Not Emma, but Shane and Angela need to believe everything went according to plan." Dale's voice carried the cold precision that had made him successful in corporate warfare. "I have an idea that will give us everything we need to destroy them." As they prepared to leave, Emma tugged on Dale's jacket. "Daddy, are you mad at Uncle Shane and Mommy?" Dale knelt to her level, looking into eyes that reflected his own intelligence and determination. "Why would you ask that, sweetheart?" "Because of what I saw in your study. They were taking pictures of your secret papers and saying bad words about you." Pride and fury warred in Dale's chest. His 7-year-old daughter had recognized corporate espionage when she saw it. "What kind of bad words?" "Mommy said you were stupid and that Uncle Shane was going to make lots of money from your files. She said after they got the money, they could go away together and I could live with Grandma Cheryl." The casual way Emma delivered this information, as if discussing a change in weekend plans rather than a family's destruction, revealed how little Angela had tried to hide her contempt from their daughter. Dale stood, his decision crystallizing. Angela and Shane had betrayed him, stolen from him, planned to traffic his child, and poisoned his daughter's innocence with their schemes. There would be no forgiveness, no mercy, no escape. "Grace," he said quietly, "I want you to make a phone call. Tell Shane there's been a complication, that Emma woke up during transport and had to be sedated again. By me, 3 hours. What are you planning?" Dale's smile was arctic. "Justice. The kind that doesn't require courts or juries." As they drove away from the warehouse with Emma sleeping safely in the back seat, Dale began planning the most important operation of his life. Shane and Angela thought they were predators who'd successfully eliminated a threat. They were about to learn they'd awakened something far more dangerous than they'd ever imagined. Chapter 4. The Architect's Design. Dale returned home at 3 a.m. to find Angela passed out on their bed, an empty wine bottle on the nightstand beside a half-empty bottle of prescription anxiety medication. She lay sprawled across the sheets, still wearing the black dress she'd chosen for their daughter's death, makeup smeared from hours of performed grief. He stood in the doorway studying the woman he'd loved for 15 years, searching for any trace of the devoted wife and mother she'd pretended to be. But all he saw now was an actress who'd given an award-worthy performance while selling their child to human traffickers. Emma was safely hidden at Corey Crane's secure facility, a converted estate that served as Dale's emergency operations center. Grace Weaver had made the call to Shane, reporting complications that would delay Emma's delivery by 12 hours. That gave Dale time to orchestrate something far more permanent than a simple rescue. In his study, Dale activated the secure communication system that connected him to his most trusted operatives. Matthews Security Consulting employed former military and intelligence personnel who specialized in situations where conventional law enforcement couldn't, or wouldn't, intervene. Corey, Dale spoke into the encrypted phone. I need a full tactical team prepared for Operation Reckoning. Authorization level black. Copy that, boss. Resources unlimited. Timeline 18 hours for deployment, 6 hours for execution. Done. And Corey? This one's personal. Understood, sir. Dale spent the next hour reviewing personnel files, selecting operators who'd proven their loyalty through years of dangerous assignments. Marcus Moody, his demolitions expert and former Navy SEAL. Eugene Frank, whose computer skills could penetrate any security system. Luke Darling, a psychological warfare specialist who could break anyone's mind without laying a finger on them. But this wasn't just about assembling a team. Shane and Angela's betrayal had revealed a cancer that needed to be completely excised. Guerra's human trafficking network, the corruption at Greenwich Hospital, the corporate espionage ring, all of it would burn. At 6 a.m., Angela stumbled into the kitchen wearing yesterday's clothes and yesterday's grief. She'd perfected the look of a devastated mother, complete with red-rimmed eyes and trembling hands. I can't believe she's gone, Angela whispered, pouring coffee with shaking fingers. Our little girl. Dale watched her performance with clinical detachment. The funeral arrangements need to be made. Shane offered to handle everything. He feels responsible, thinks he should have caught the infection earlier. How considerate of him. Angela looked up sharply, perhaps detecting something in his tone. Dale, are you angry with Shane? Because this wasn't his fault. The infection was too advanced. I'm not angry, Dale replied truthfully. Anger was a hot emotion, consuming and temporary. What he felt now was cold, calculating, and permanent. I'm grateful Shane tried so hard to save her. Relief flickered across Angela's features. He's devastated. I think he needs our support right now. Absolutely. Why don't you invite him for dinner tonight? We should discuss Emma's memorial service. Angela nodded eagerly, probably looking forward to more time with her lover while maintaining their cover story. That's a wonderful idea. Shane could use the comfort. After Angela left for another grief counseling session with her sister, Dale drove to his company's headquarters in Stanford. The 40-story glass tower housed one of the most sophisticated intelligence operations on the East Coast, disguised as a legitimate security consulting firm. In his executive conference room, Dale assembled his core team. Maps, photographs, and surveillance reports covered every surface. Electronic equipment hummed, with intercepted communications and real-time tracking data. Gentlemen, Dale began, we're dealing with a criminal conspiracy that includes human trafficking, corporate espionage, and attempted murder. The subjects are Shane Dennis, Angela Matthews, and Gustavo Guerra, along with an unknown number of associates. Marcus Moody studied the tactical photographs. What's the objective, boss? Complete elimination of the network. No arrests, no trials, no witnesses. Dale's voice carried the authority of a man who'd made life-and-death decisions in combat zones. Shane Dennis and Angela Matthews have forfeited their right to exist. Guerra's operation needs to disappear permanently. Eugene Frank looked up from his laptop. I've penetrated Guerra's communications network. His next shipment of merchandise moves through Port Newark tomorrow night. 12 people scheduled for transport to various international destinations. We'll intercept, Dale decided. Those people get genuine protection while we acquire intelligence on Guerra's entire operation. Luke Darling spread psychological profiles across the table. Dennis and your wife are amateurs playing in a professional game. Their terror when things start falling apart will provide significant leverage. The timeline, Dale continued, begins tonight. Angela and Shane expect to celebrate Emma's successful death while planning their escape with Guerra's blood money. Instead, they're walking into a trap that will consume them slowly and completely. Corey presented the technical specifications. Full surveillance package is deployed around their meeting locations. Every word, every move, recorded and documented. When this is over, we'll have enough evidence to bury anyone who tries to investigate their disappearances. Dale studied the faces of men who'd followed him through corporate wars and gray zone operations. Questions. Rules of engagement. Marcus asked. There are no rules. Shane Dennis planned to sell my 7-year-old daughter to child traffickers. Angela Matthews is his willing accomplice. They've destroyed the sanctity of my family and my home. Dale's voice dropped to barely above a whisper. I want them to understand exactly what they've unleashed before they die. The team dispersed to their preparations, leaving Dale alone with his thoughts. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, he could see the Connecticut coast stretching toward Long Island Sound. This was the empire he'd built through discipline, intelligence, and an absolute refusal to accept defeat. Shane and Angela had violated the most fundamental rule of warfare: never threaten what a dangerous man loves most. His phone buzzed with a text from Angela. Shane will come for dinner at 7. He's bringing wine to celebrate Emma's memory. Dale typed back, perfect. I'll prepare something special. As the sun set over his corporate kingdom, Dale Matthews began the final preparations for a war that would end with total victory or total destruction. But given his track record, there was really only one possible outcome. Shane and Angela had started this game thinking they were predators. They were about to discover they were prey. Chapter 5. The Web Titans. At exactly 7 p.m., Shane Dennis knocked on the front door of the Matthews estate, carrying a bottle of expensive champagne and wearing the solemn expression of a grieving uncle. Dale watched through the security monitors as Angela let him in, their embrace lasting several seconds longer than appropriate for in-laws mourning a child. Dale, Shane said, entering the dining room with manufactured sadness. I can't tell you how sorry I am about Emma. She was such a special little girl. She was everything to me, Dale replied, pouring wine into crystal glasses that had been wedding gifts 15 years ago. Please sit. Angela prepared Emma's favorite meal, a sort of memorial dinner. As they ate, Shane regaled them with stories of Emma's visits to the hospital, how the staff had adored her, how she talked about becoming a doctor like Uncle Shane. Angela dabbed at her eyes periodically, playing the devastated mother to perfection. But Dale was watching for micro-expressions, vocal stress patterns, and body language tells that revealed their true emotions. Shane kept checking his phone, while Angela's appetite seemed remarkably robust for a woman who'd lost her child 18 hours ago. I've been thinking about the funeral arrangements, Dale said during a lull in conversation. Something grand. Emma deserves the best. Actually, Shane interjected carefully, I was hoping we could discuss something delicate. The hospital administration is concerned about potential liability issues. They're recommending immediate cremation and a private service. Liability issues, medical malpractice lawsuits, media attention. These things can get messy when a child dies during routine surgery. Shane's performance was smooth, practiced. I think Emma would want us to remember her privately, without all the circus of a public funeral. Dale nodded thoughtfully. You're probably right. Keep it simple, keep it family. Relief flickered across both their faces. A cremation would eliminate any possibility of an autopsy that could reveal Emma was never actually dead. They thought they just sealed their victory. There's one thing troubling me, Dale continued conversationally. Emma mentioned seeing something strange the other night. She said she watched you and Angela through the study window, taking pictures of papers from my desk. The temperature in the room dropped 20 degrees. Angela's wine glass trembled in her hand, while Shane's face went pale. Children have such vivid imaginations, Angela said quickly. She probably saw us talking and thought. She was very specific. Dale interrupted gently, said you were photographing documents while discussing how much money you could make from my files. Shane set down his fork with mechanical precision. Dale, I think grief might be affecting your judgment. Why would we? She also mentioned you calling me stupid and planning to go away together while she lived with Grandma Cheryl. The silence stretched like a wire about to snap. Angela and Shane exchanged glances that confirmed everything Dale needed to know. Where is this coming from? Angela demanded, her mask beginning to slip. Our daughter just died, and you're inventing conspiracy theories? Inventing. Dale reached into his jacket and placed a small digital recorder on the table. This device was in my study for the past week. Would you like to hear what it captured? Shane lunged for the recorder, but Dale was faster, snatching it back and pressing play. Angela's voice filled the room. Dale's so trusting, he'll never suspect anything. By the time he discovers the missing files, we'll be halfway to Switzerland with Guerra's payment. That's not. Angela started, then stopped as her own words continued playing. Shane's voice joined hers. The little brat saw too much. We need to handle the Emma problem before she talks. Dale stopped the recording, studying their faces as the reality of their exposure sank in. The Emma problem? You call my daughter a problem that needed to be handled? Dale, please, let us explain, Shane began. No explanation necessary. I understand perfectly. Dale's voice remained calm, conversational. You've been stealing corporate secrets, selling them to human traffickers, and planning to fake Emma's death so you could disappear with the profits. Angela jumped up from her chair. You don't understand the whole situation. I understand that you sold our daughter to child traffickers. The accusation hung in the air like a death sentence. Shane's face went white, while Angela staggered backward. That's not. We would never. Shane's composure finally cracked. Really? Then why did Dr. Weaver expect to deliver Emma to Guerra's facility tonight? The mention of Grace's name hit them like physical blows. Shane sank into his chair, realizing the scope of Dale's knowledge. How long have you known? Angela whispered. Long enough to save my daughter and document your entire operation. Dale stood, moving to the window that overlooked the grounds. Emma is safe, by the way. Very much alive and very well cared for. Where is she? Angela demanded. Somewhere you'll never find her. Dale turned back to face them. The question now is what to do with the two people who tried to traffic my child. Shane attempted to regain control. Dale, we can work this out. The whole thing got out of hand, but we never intended. You never intended to get caught. Look, the money from Guerra, we can split it. Make you a partner. We have contacts who would pay millions for your client files. Dale smiled for the first time that evening. You think this is about money? Everything's about money. Angela snapped, her true nature finally emerging. Your precious company, this house, your reputation, all of it's just money and ego. At least Shane and I are honest about what we want. And what do you want? Freedom from your suffocating control, your obsessive need to dominate everything around you. Shane offers me excitement, passion, a real life instead of being a trophy wife in your corporate museum. Dale absorbed her words without flinching. So you decided to steal my business secrets and sell my daughter to human traffickers. Emma would have been fine. Angela shouted. Guerra has clients who've been waiting years for a child like her. She would have had everything, money, education, opportunities you could never provide. Opportunities as a trafficked child, as an adopted daughter to people who truly want her, not someone who sees her as an extension of his own ego. Dale nodded slowly. I see. You genuinely believe you were doing Emma a favor. We were saving her from becoming like you, cold, calculating, incapable of real emotion. Interesting perspective. Dale checked his watch. 8:47 p.m. Unfortunately, your business partners are expecting delivery of the merchandise in about an hour. Shane's phone buzzed with a text. His face went ashen as he read it. Problem? Dale asked. Guerra's people are asking for confirmation of the delivery schedule. Then you better confirm it. Dale's tone turned deadly serious. Both of you are going to that warehouse. You're going to explain to Guerra exactly how you lost his merchandise. And you're going to face the consequences of disappointing a man who kills people for far smaller mistakes. Dale, please, Shane begged. We can fix this. We can make this right. The only thing that can be made right now is justice. Dale pulled out his phone and dialed. Corey, it's time. Have Marcus and Eugene Move to positions Alpha and Beta. Luke should begin phase 2 of the psychological protocol. What are you doing? Angela demanded. Completing your transaction with Guerra. You promised him a child, and he's going to be very unhappy when you arrive empty-handed. The color drained from both their faces as they realized the trap closing around them. You can't send us to Guerra, Shane whispered. He'll kill us. Yes, Dale agreed. He will. Very slowly and very painfully, once he understands that you not only lost his merchandise, but exposed his entire operation to a man with my resources. Dale moved toward the door, leaving them paralyzed with terror. The car is outside. You have 30 minutes to reach the warehouse, or Guerra's people will come looking for you here. I guarantee they won't be as merciful as I am. As he walked away, Angela screamed after him. You're a monster. Emma will hate you for this. Dale paused at the doorway. Emma will never know what happened to the people who try to sell her, but she'll grow up safe, loved, and protected by someone who would burn the world down before letting anyone hurt her. The last thing he heard as he left was Shane's broken voice. What have we done? Oh God, what have we done? Dale didn't answer. They'd made their choices, and now they would face the consequences. In exactly 28 minutes, Angela and Shane would discover that Dale Matthews never bluffed, never forgave, and never forgot. The architect's design was nearing completion. Chapter 6, The Devil's Bargain. The abandoned warehouse in Bridgeport resembled a concrete tomb in the industrial wasteland of Connecticut's Forgotten Coast. Angela's Mercedes pulled into the empty parking lot at exactly 10:15 p.m., 15 minutes late, a delay that hadn't gone unnoticed by the figures waiting in the shadows. Dale watched through military-grade night vision from his position atop a nearby shipping container, communicating with his team through encrypted earpieces. Marcus and Eugene had established perimeter control, while Luke monitored communications from a mobile command center disguised as a maintenance van. Subjects approaching the warehouse. Dale whispered into his microphone. Angela's shaking like a leaf. Shane looks ready to bolt. Guerra's people are already inside, Eugene reported. 4 vehicles, estimated 12 personnel. Heavy weapons confirmed. Through his scope, Dale observed Angela and Shane approaching the warehouse entrance. Their body language screamed terror and desperation, exactly the state of mind he'd intended to create. The warehouse door opened, revealing Gustavo Guerra himself. At 52, Guerra projected the dangerous charisma of a man who'd built an empire on human suffering. His expensive suit and gold jewelry contrasted sharply with the industrial setting, while the armed men flanking him left no doubt about his true nature. Dr. Dennis, Mrs. Matthews. Guerra's accent carried the refined menace of educated violence. You're late, and I don't see my merchandise. Dale activated the long-range microphone system that would capture every word of the conversation. This recording would serve multiple purposes in the coming hours. There were complications, Shane began, his voice cracking with stress. What kind of complications? Angela stepped forward, attempting to salvage their situation. The child woke up during transport. We had to sedate her again, but she fought the drugs. Our contact at the hospital is running additional blood work to ensure there was no permanent damage. Guerra studied them with the cold calculation of a predator evaluating prey. Dr. Weaver reported no such complications when she called this afternoon. The mention of Grace's name sent visible shocks through both Angela and Shane. They'd assumed their plan was proceeding smoothly, unaware that Dale had turned their own coordinator against them. Grace, what did she say exactly? Shane asked weakly. That the merchandise was ready for delivery at 10 p.m. Yet here you are, empty-handed and making excuses. Guerra circled them slowly, his movements precise and threatening. In my business, reliability is everything. When someone promises to deliver a product and fails, it raises questions about their competence and their honesty. The girl is valuable, Angela said desperately. Healthy, intelligent, from an affluent family. Your clients will pay premium prices for someone of her quality. My clients have already paid. They're expecting delivery within 48 hours to complete their own arrangements. Guerra stopped directly in front of them. The failure to deliver will cost me significant reputation and revenue. Dale smiled grimly from his concealed position. Guerra was performing exactly as expected. A businessman angry about a disrupted transaction, unaware that he was being maneuvered into position for complete destruction. "We can make this right," Shane pleaded. "Give us another 24 hours. The child will be ready for transport, I guarantee it." "Guarantees." Guerra laughed without humor. "You guaranteed delivery tonight. Why should I believe your new promises?" "Because we have too much invested in this to fail," Angela insisted. "The information we provided about my husband's company, the access to his client networks, we've given you everything you asked for. Information is worthless if you can't deliver the primary merchandise." Dale's earpiece crackled with Luke's voice. "Boss, we've got incoming vehicles." 3 black SUVs approaching from the east. License plates match Guerra's secondary team. The situation was about to become significantly more complicated. Guerra had brought backup, suggesting he'd anticipated problems with this transaction. "I'm disappointed," Guerra continued inside the warehouse. "Dr. Dennis, you presented yourself as a professional who could handle complex operations. Mrs. Matthews, you claimed your husband was too trusting to discover our arrangement. Yet here we are, dealing with amateur hour complications." "My husband doesn't suspect anything," Angela lied desperately. "Dale thinks our daughter died during surgery. He has no idea about our partnership with you." Dale's jaw tightened at hearing his name spoken so casually in the context of their betrayal. But he maintained professional composure as Guerra's reinforcements took positions around the warehouse perimeter. "Then where is the merchandise?" Guerra demanded. Shane's composure finally collapsed completely. "The truth is, we think Dale might know something. Our daughter saw us together in his study, saw us photographing his files. We had to accelerate the timeline to protect the operation." Guerra's expression turned deadly. "You're telling me the target's father is aware of your activities?" "No. Well, maybe. We're not sure what he knows. Uncertainty is unacceptable in my business." Guerra gestured to his men, who immediately moved to surround Angela and Shane. The implications were clear. This conversation was heading toward a permanent resolution. "Please," Angela begged. "We can still deliver. Dale doesn't know about you or your organization. Even if he suspects us, he can't connect us to your operation." "Actually," Dale said, stepping out of the shadows with his weapon drawn, "I know everything." The warehouse erupted into chaos. Guerra's men reached for their weapons while Angela screamed and Shane dove behind a shipping container. But Dale's team had positioned themselves perfectly. Marcus emerged from the opposite entrance while Eugene blocked the rear exit, both armed with military-grade assault rifles. "Nobody moves," Dale commanded, his voice carrying absolute authority. "Weapons on the ground, hands visible, or this ends very badly for everyone." Guerra showed remarkable composure for a man facing unexpected opposition. "Mr. Matthews, I presume. Your reputation for tactical planning appears to be well-deserved. Drop your weapons." "Now, I think you misunderstand the situation," Guerra replied calmly. "You're outnumbered 12-3. My people have families to protect, which makes them considerably more motivated than your corporate mercenaries." "Corey," Dale spoke into his earpiece. "Light them up." Suddenly, every window in the warehouse exploded inward as Luke's team launched flashbang grenades from concealed positions. The deafening explosions and blinding light sent Guerra's men stumbling blindly, while Dale's team, equipped with tactical gear, maintained complete situational control. In the chaos, Dale moved toward Angela and Shane, who were huddled together behind inadequate cover. "End of the line," he told them quietly. "Dale, please," Angela sobbed. "I'm still Emma's mother. She needs me." Emma needed a mother who wouldn't sell her to human traffickers. Shane looked up with desperate eyes. "I can give you everything. Guerra's entire network, client lists, financial records. I have access to information worth millions. Information I'll extract from Guerra directly." As the smoke cleared, Dale's team had efficiently subdued Guerra's personnel. The human trafficker himself sat zip-tied to a metal chair, blood trickling from a cut above his eye, but his composure intact. Impressive coordination, Guerra admitted. Your daughter's safety was never truly at risk, was it? My daughter has been safe since yesterday. This was always about justice. Justice? Guerra smiled coldly. You're about to torture and murder 12 people. How is that justice? You're right, Dale replied thoughtfully. It's not justice. It's war. He turned to Angela and Shane, who were now secured with zip ties and watching in terror. You wanted to know what kind of man I really am? You're about to find out. Dale pulled out a satellite phone and dialed a number that connected him to contacts built over decades in military and intelligence communities. This is Matthews. Authorization, Delta 77. I need a black site extraction team and my coordinates. 13 subjects for enhanced interrogation and permanent disposal. Angela's face went white. You can't do this. You're not a killer. I was a killer long before I became a businessman, Dale replied matter-of-factly. The only difference is now I choose my targets more carefully. The sound of helicopters approaching from the distance marked the beginning of the final phase. Shane began hyperventilating while Angela cursed him with words that would have made seasoned soldiers blush. Any last words for Emma? Dale asked them. Tell her we loved her, Angela whispered. No, I'll tell her that her parents died in a car accident. She'll grow up without ever knowing she was betrayed by the people who should have protected her most. As the helicopters touched down outside, Dale felt something he hadn't experienced in years. Complete satisfaction. The architect's design was perfect, and the execution had been flawless. Shane, Angela, and Guerra would disappear into a system designed for people who didn't officially exist. Their fate would be slow, thorough, and educational for anyone else who might consider threatening Dale Matthews' family. Emma would grow up safe, loved, and protected by a father who had proven there were no limits to what he would do to keep her secure. The devil's bargain was complete. Chapter 7. Blood and Revelation. The Black Site facility, hidden in the Adirondack Mountains, operated beyond the reach of conventional law enforcement. Built during the Cold War and maintained by private military contractors, it served as a place where dangerous people disappeared and uncomfortable questions were answered through methods that courts would never sanction. Dale stood before a wall of monitors displaying 12 separate interrogation cells, each containing one of Guerra's associates. In the center cell, Guerra himself sat strapped to a chair that had been specifically designed to cause maximum discomfort while inflicting no permanent damage, yet. Angela and Shane occupied separate cells, their initial defiance having dissolved into whimpering terror as they realized the true scope of Dale's capabilities. They'd spent the last 18 hours watching Dale's interrogation specialists extract information from Guerra's network using techniques that reduced hardened criminals to sobbing confessions. Status report. Dale said to Luke Darling, who'd been coordinating the psychological warfare campaign. Guerra's financial networks are completely mapped. We have bank accounts in 17 countries, property holdings, client lists, and operational detail for the last 5 years of human trafficking. Luke consulted his tablet. The bastard's been moving an average of 200 people annually. And the current inventory? 43 people in various stages of the pipeline. Men, women, and 12 children. All awaiting transport to buyers across 3 continents. Dale nodded grimly. Extraction status? Marcus and Eugene's teams have identified all holding facilities. We can liberate the entire inventory within 6 hours and have them in legitimate protective custody before anyone realizes Guerra's operation has been eliminated. Through the monitors, Dale watched Angela pace her cell like a caged animal, while Shane sat motionless in a corner, staring at nothing. They'd been forced to witness every detail of Guerra's interrogation, understanding that their turn was approaching. What about their families? Dale asked, referring to Guerra's personnel. Standard protocol. Wives and children will receive generous life insurance payments and relocation assistance. Official story is industrial accident at Guerra's legitimate import business. Dale approved the psychological profile assessments that Luke had prepared. Guerra's people were mostly desperate men who'd fallen into trafficking through circumstances rather than choice. Their families deserve protection, not punishment. Time to finish this, Dale decided. He entered Guerra's cell, where the human trafficker looked considerably less composed than he had 12 hours earlier. Professional interrogation had extracted every detail of his operation, but Guerra's eyes still held the defiant spark of a man who'd survived worse situations. Your network is finished, Dale informed him matter-of-factly. Every account frozen, every property seized, every contact identified and neutralized. 43 people you were planning to sell are now free. You think you're some kind of hero? Guerra spat blood from his split lip. Those people chose to disappear. I was providing a service. The children chose to disappear. Guerra's silence confirmed what Dale already knew. Whatever twisted justification Guerra used for trafficking adults, he had no defense for the children. Your operation generated approximately $12 million annually, Dale continued. Money that could have built schools, hospitals, legitimate businesses. Instead, you chose to profit from human misery. Spare me the moral lecture. You've tortured and murdered 12 people tonight. How does that make you better than me? I haven't murdered anyone yet, Dale replied calmly. That comes next. He left Guerra's cell and moved to Shane's, where his former brother-in-law looked up with hollow eyes that had seen too much horror in the past day. Dale, please, Shane whispered. I know what we did was wrong, but Emma's safe now. Isn't that enough? Dale pulled up a chair and sat facing Shane. Tell me about the first time you sold information to Guerra. It started as a single transaction. Angela found some client files in your study, just basic corporate stuff. Guerra paid $50,000 for the information. And then, he wanted more. Security protocols, employee records, financial data. The money was incredible. More than I made in 6 months of surgery. When did trafficking children become part of the arrangement? Shane's face crumpled. Guerra mentioned it as a hypothetical. Said he had clients who would pay enormous sums for untraceable children. But it was just talk until Emma saw too much. She was going to tell you everything. About us, about the files, about the money. We panicked. Dale studied Shane's broken expression. So you decided to fake her death and sell her to child molesters. It wasn't supposed to be like that. Guerra said his clients were legitimate families who couldn't adopt through normal channels. Rich people who wanted children but couldn't pass background checks for minor reasons. Minor reasons like being pedophiles and child killers. Shane began sobbing. We didn't know. I swear we didn't know what kind of people they really were. Dale found himself almost believing Shane's claim of ignorance, which made the betrayal even more infuriating. His brother-in-law had been willing to sell Emma without even bothering to investigate where she would end up. What was the plan after Emma was delivered? Angela and I would disappear. New identities, new lives in South America. Guerra had connections who could make us completely untraceable, leaving me to believe my daughter was dead while you lived on blood money. Shane nodded miserably. We thought you'd eventually move on, maybe remarry. You're successful enough to start over. The casual way Shane dismissed 15 years of marriage and Dale's love for Emma revealed a level of selfishness that defied comprehension. Dale moved to Angela's cell, where his wife stood defiantly despite her circumstances. Still playing the victim? He asked. You're enjoying this, aren't you? Angela accused. Finally have an excuse to show everyone what a controlling monster you really are. I'm a monster. Dale laughed without humor. You tried to sell our daughter to human traffickers. To save her from becoming like you, cold, emotionless, obsessed with control and dominance. At least Guerra's clients would have given her love and attention. Guerra's clients included a convicted pedophile in Bangkok, a snuff film producer in Romania, and an organ harvesting operation in Moldova. Angela's face went white as the reality of her daughter's fate finally penetrated her delusions. That's not possible. Guerra said they were families. Guerra said whatever you needed to hear to get Emma delivered. Angela slumped against the wall, the last of her defiance crumbling. Oh God, what did we almost do? You almost sold our 7-year-old daughter to people who would have tortured her, raped her, and eventually killed her for entertainment. The brutal truth hung in the air like a toxic cloud. Angela began vomiting from the horror of understanding what she'd really been planning. But you stopped it, she gasped between retches. Emma's safe. Can't that be enough? Dale considered her question seriously. In the abstract, she was right. Emma was safe. The trafficking network was destroyed. Justice had been served. But the abstract didn't account for the violation of trust, the betrayal of family, the casual willingness to sacrifice their child for money and sexual freedom. No, he said finally. It's not enough. Dale returned to the monitor room, where Luke was preparing the final phase of the operation. Everything's ready, Luke reported. Guerra's offshore accounts will fund a new charitable foundation for trafficking victims. His legitimate businesses will be sold with proceeds going to law enforcement training programs. And his personal assets will establish a trust fund for Emma's future. And the principals? Guerra will have a heart attack in his cell within the hour. Natural causes, brought on by the stress of interrogation. Shane and Angela will attempt suicide together using smuggled pills. A tragic ending to their guilt over Emma's death. Dale nodded approvingly. The official story would satisfy any investigation while ensuring that no one ever learned the truth about Emma's kidnapping. But first, there was one final conversation to have. Dale returned to Angela's cell, where she sat curled in a corner, still processing the horror of what she'd almost accomplished. I have a question for you, he said quietly. She looked up with red-rimmed eyes. If Emma had died during the surgery, really died, would you have felt any genuine grief? Angela considered the question for a long moment before answering with devastating honesty. I don't know. I think I stopped loving her the way a mother should when I fell in love with Shane. She became an obstacle to my happiness instead of my daughter. The admission was more chilling than any of the physical threats or criminal conspiracies. Angela had genuinely stopped loving their child, viewing Emma as nothing more than inconvenience to be eliminated. Thank you for your honesty, Dale said. It makes what happens next much easier. He left the cell and activated the final protocol. Within minutes, Guerra would be dead from an untraceable cardiac event. Shane and Angela would follow shortly after, victims of their own guilt and despair. The official record would show that a pediatric surgeon and his lover had died by suicide after accidentally causing the death of their beloved daughter during routine surgery. Guerra would have a heart attack brought on by the stress of a federal investigation into his import business. Emma would grow up believing her parents had died in a tragic accident, never learning that they'd tried to sell her to monsters. Dale would raise her with the help of trusted allies, ensuring she became strong, intelligent, and capable of protecting herself. As the monitors went dark one by one, Dale felt the satisfaction of perfect justice. The architect's design was complete, the threats eliminated, and his daughter's future secured. Emma was safe. His enemies were dead, and no one would ever threaten his family again. The blood and revelation had served their purpose. Chapter 8. The Perfect Storm. 3 months after the night that changed everything, Dale Matthews stood in his redesigned study, watching Emma play in the garden through bulletproof windows that had replaced the standard glass. The room bore no resemblance to the space where Angela and Shane had photographed his corporate secrets. Dale had burned everything and rebuilt from the foundation up. Emma seemed to have adapted remarkably well to her new life. The official story was that her parents had died in a car accident while she was visiting relatives, and Dale's cover story had been so thoroughly constructed that even Emma's child psychologist believed it completely. At 8 years old now, she displayed the same sharp intelligence that had nearly saved her life, but without the trauma that could have destroyed her. "Daddy," Emma called from the garden, "Aunt Grace is here." Dr. Grace Weaver had become Emma's unofficial guardian and Dale's closest ally since the operation. Her testimony had been crucial in documenting Guerra's trafficking network, and her medical expertise had helped explain Emma's recovery from her supposed illness. More importantly, she provided the maternal influence that Emma needed while understanding the security requirements that defined their new life. Dale watched Grace approach the house, noting the slight tension in her movement that suggested something was wrong. As Emma's primary care physician and one of only 3 people who knew the complete truth about that night, Grace's concerns carried significant weight. "We need to talk," Grace said quietly as Emma ran ahead into the house. In the secure conference room adjacent to his study, Grace spread out a series of photographs and documents that made Dale's blood run cold. "These arrived by courier this morning," she explained. "No return address, no identifying marks, but the content suggests someone knows more than they should." The first photograph showed Emma playing in their garden, clearly taken from outside the estate's perimeter. The second showed Dale entering his corporate headquarters. The third showed Grace leaving the hospital where she worked. But it was the final document that sent ice through Dale's veins, a detailed timeline of events from the night of Emma's supposed death, accurate to the minute and including details that only someone with inside knowledge could have known. Who else could have this information? Dale asked, his mind already shifting into threat assessment mode. The only people who knew the complete operation were you, me, your team, and... Grace hesitated. "And there's something I never told you about that night. When I left the warehouse with the equipment Guerra's people expected to see, I was followed. I managed to lose them, but someone was definitely conducting surveillance." Dale's jaw tightened. "Why didn't you report this immediately?" "Because I thought it was just Guerra being cautious. But if someone else was watching the warehouse that night, if they saw what really happened..." The implications were staggering. If a third party had witnessed the operation and documented Emma's rescue, they possessed information that could destroy the carefully constructed narrative Dale had built around his daughter's new life. "Have you shared this with anyone else?" "Of course not. But Dale, whoever sent these photos, knows Emma is alive. They know we faked her death, and they know what happened to Angela and Shane." Dale studied the surveillance photos more carefully, noting the professional quality and angles that suggested military or intelligence training. These aren't the work of amateurs. His secure phone rang, the number reserved for only the most urgent communications. Corey Crane's voice carried unusual stress. "Boss, we've got a problem. Someone just deposited $5 million into the Matthews Foundation account with a note saying it's payment for services rendered." "What services?" "Eliminating the Guerra trafficking network. The wire transfer originated from a bank in Switzerland, but the routing suggests it bounced through at least 6 countries before reaching us." Dale felt the familiar sensation of walls closing in. "Any other communication?" "Just the deposit slip with a handwritten note. Your daughter's secret is safe with us. Consider this a down payment for future cooperation." The message was clear. Someone with significant resources knew everything about the operation and was positioning themselves for leverage over Dale's family. "Corey, initiate Protocol 7. Full security sweep of all properties, complete communications analysis, and activate the emergency relocation procedures." "Copy that, boss." Dale ended the call and turned to Grace, whose face had gone pale. "What's Protocol 7? "Complete lockdown. If someone's trying to leverage Emma's situation, they're about to discover what happens when you threaten my family." But even as Dale spoke the words, he felt an unfamiliar sensation, uncertainty. For the first time in his adult life, he was facing an enemy whose capabilities and motivations were completely unknown. The next morning brought another courier delivery, this time to Dale's corporate office. The package contained a single photograph: Emma walking to school, accompanied by her security detail, taken from an impossible angle that suggested the photographer had been positioned inside the supposedly secure perimeter. The accompanying note was brief: "Impressive security arrangements, but not quite sufficient. We need to meet. Today. Central Park, Bethesda Fountain, 3 p.m. Come alone, or Emma's story becomes tomorrow's headlines." Dale stared at the message, analyzing every word for clues about his unknown adversary. The choice of Central Park suggested someone comfortable operating in high-visibility public spaces. The demand to come alone indicated confidence in their ability to control the situation. The threat to expose Emma's story revealed they understood exactly how devastating such revelation would be. By 2:45 p.m., Dale was positioned near Bethesda Fountain, his team providing invisible perimeter security while he waited for contact. The autumn afternoon was crowded with tourists and locals, providing perfect cover for surveillance and counter-surveillance operations. At exactly 3 p.m., a woman approached his bench. She appeared to be in her early 40s, professionally dressed, with the controlled bearing of someone accustomed to dangerous situations. Most striking were her eyes, intelligent, calculating, and completely familiar. "Mr. Matthews," she said, settling beside him on the bench. "Thank you for coming. Do I know you? Not personally, but you knew my husband very well." She pulled out a photograph of Gustavo Guerra. "My name is Melissa Guerra. I was Gustavo's business partner long before I became his wife." Dale's hand moved instinctively toward his concealed weapon, but Melissa raised her hand peacefully. "I'm not here for revenge," she continued. "Quite the opposite. I'm here to offer you a partnership." Partnership? My husband's operation was profitable, but limited by his lack of imagination. You eliminated him and his network with surgical precision, rescued 43 trafficking victims, and covered your tracks so completely that no one suspects what really happened. Dale remained silent, waiting for her to reveal her true intentions. "I've spent 3 months analyzing your methods, studying your security arrangements, researching your business practices. You're exactly the kind of partner I need for my next venture." "What kind of venture?" Melissa smiled coldly. "Justice. My husband was a small player in a much larger game. There are networks of traffickers, corrupt officials, and child predators operating across the globe with complete impunity. They need to be eliminated, and I need someone with your particular skills to help me do it. And if I refuse, then Emma's story becomes public knowledge. Your business empire collapses under investigation, and she grows up knowing that her father is a vigilante killer who destroyed her family." The threat was delivered with casual precision, confirming that Melissa Guerra represented a level of sophistication Dale hadn't anticipated. "But if I agree, then Emma remains safely anonymous. Your business continues to prosper, and together we eliminate some of the most dangerous predators on Earth. You get to protect innocent children while I get revenge against the animals who corrupted my husband's legitimate business interests." Dale studied Melissa's face, searching for deception or weakness. "What makes you think I'm interested in becoming an international assassin?" "Because you've already started. Guerra's network was just the beginning. There are hundreds of operations like his, thousands of children at risk, and no one with the resources and ruthlessness necessary to stop them." She pulled out a tablet displaying photographs and documents. "This is the Kowalski Syndicate operating out of Prague. They specialize in children under 10. This is the Yamamoto Group in Tokyo. They run forced organ harvesting operations. This is the Petrov Collective in Moscow. Their clients prefer live entertainment that doesn't survive the experience." Each image was more horrifying than the last, showing the scope of international trafficking that law enforcement couldn't or wouldn't address. "You could spend the rest of your life protecting just Emma," Melissa continued, "or you could help me protect thousands of children who don't have fathers capable of saving them." Dale closed the tablet, his mind processing the implications. "What exactly are you proposing?" "A partnership. Your tactical expertise and resources, my intelligence networks, and international connections. We identify trafficking operations, eliminate the principals, rescue the victims, and disappear before anyone realizes what happened. And Emma remains completely protected, better than protected. She grows up in a world where fewer monsters prey on children." Dale stared across the fountain at families enjoying the autumn afternoon, parents pushing strollers, children feeding ducks, couples walking hand in hand. None of them aware of the horrors that Melissa's tablet had documented. "I need time to consider this." "Of course, but don't take too long. The Kowalski Syndicate is planning to move 20 children next week. Every day you delay means more victims." Melissa stood to leave, then paused. "One more thing, Mr. Matthews. I know you're wondering how I survived your operation against my husband's network. The thought had occurred to me. I was never part of Gustavo's trafficking business. I ran his legitimate operations while he handled the uglier side of things. When you eliminated his network, you actually did me a favor. I inherited everything without the complications. And now you want to use those resources for vigilante justice. I want to use them to finish what you started. The question is whether you're brave enough to become the kind of father Emma really needs. One who makes the world safer for all children, not just his own." As Melissa walked away, Dale remained on the bench, staring at the tablet full of horrors. She was right about one thing. The Gera operation had been just the beginning. There were monsters operating around the world with complete impunity, and conventional law enforcement couldn't touch them. But accepting Melissa's partnership would mean embracing a life of perpetual warfare against an endless enemy. It would mean raising Emma in the shadow of constant danger while using her safety as justification for becoming something more dangerous than the criminals he hunted. The perfect storm was gathering, and Dale Matthews had to decide whether to seek shelter or ride it to its ultimate conclusion. Emma's laughter echoed across the park as she played with other children, blissfully unaware that her father was contemplating becoming the world's most dangerous man in order to keep her world safe. The architect's design was about to expand far beyond anything he'd originally imagined. Chapter 9. The New Kingdom. 6 months later, Dale Matthews stood on the balcony of a penthouse overlooking Monaco Harbor, watching the sun set over the Mediterranean while Emma practiced violin in the music room behind him. The girl had taken to their new international lifestyle with remarkable adaptability, treating their frequent travels as grand adventures rather than security necessities. The transformation had been complete and irreversible. The public Dale Matthews, CEO of Matthews Security Consulting, had suffered a tragic family loss and thrown himself into philanthropic work, establishing foundations that supported law enforcement training and victim advocacy programs around the world. The private Dale Matthews had become something else entirely. The Prague operation was flawless, Melissa Gera said, joining him on the balcony with a glass of wine and a satisfied expression. 20 children recovered, the Kowalski syndicate eliminated, and the Czech police are crediting improved international cooperation for the breakthrough. Over the past 6 months, their partnership had evolved into something more efficient and deadly than either had originally imagined. Melissa's international connections and Dale's tactical expertise had created a network capable of striking anywhere in the world with surgical precision. Any complications? Dale asked, though he already knew the answer. Their operations had become so sophisticated that local authorities usually thanked them for their assistance without realizing they'd been manipulated. None. The evidence packages we planted will keep Prague investigators busy for months, and the victims are already in protective custody. Most will be reunited with their families within the week. Dale nodded, feeling the familiar satisfaction of another successful mission. The Kowalski syndicate had been operating for 15 years, trafficking children across Eastern Europe with complete impunity. Their elimination had probably saved hundreds of future victims. What's next on the list? Melissa consulted her tablet, scrolling through intelligence reports from their global network of sources. The Nakamura Group in Kyoto is planning a major shipment. 40 children destined for clients in Southeast Asia. We have a window of opportunity when they consolidate the merchandise for transport. Timeline: 2 weeks. I've already arranged for Emma's placement in the International School of Geneva while we're operational. Dale had initially resisted involving Emma in their lifestyle, but Melissa had convinced him that hiding their activities would only create suspicion. Instead, Emma believed her father's frequent travels were business-related, while their security arrangements were explained as necessary precautions for wealthy international families. The strategy had proven remarkably effective. Emma was learning 4 languages, receiving world-class education, and developing the cultural sophistication that would serve her well in any future she chose. More importantly, she remained completely unaware of the violence that protected her innocence. There's something else, Melissa continued, her tone becoming more serious. Intelligence suggests the networks are starting to coordinate their defenses. They know someone is systematically eliminating trafficking operations. Coordinated how? Shared security, mutual early warning systems, collaborative efforts to identify the threat. They're adapting faster than we anticipated. Dale had expected this development. Criminal organizations that survived long-term did, so by learning from their losses and improving their defenses. The fact that multiple networks were now cooperating suggested their campaign was having significant impact. Are we compromised? Not directly, but they're getting smarter about operational security. The next phase will require more sophisticated approaches. Melissa pulled up a world map on her tablet, showing red pins marking known trafficking networks and blue pins indicating their successful operations. The visual was striking. They'd eliminated 17 major operations across 4 continents, but dozens of red pins remained. "We need to evolve," Dale said, studying the map. "Bigger operations, higher value targets, more significant disruption to their coordination efforts." "Agreed. But that means greater risks and more exposure. Are you prepared for that level of escalation?" Dale considered the question while watching Emma through the glass doors. She was 8 now, beautiful and brilliant, and completely trusting in her father's ability to protect her. The life they'd built was perfect in its way. Constant travel, unlimited resources, world-class education, and the satisfaction of meaningful work. But Emma wouldn't remain a child forever. Eventually, she would ask harder questions about their lifestyle, their resources, and the reasons for their security arrangements. Dale needed to ensure that when that day came, he could provide answers that wouldn't destroy her faith in the world. "The Yamamoto Group in Tokyo," Dale said finally. "What's their operational scope?" Melissa swiped to a detailed intelligence report. "Forced organ harvesting, primarily children. They maintain surgical facilities in Tokyo, Bangkok, and Manila. Annual revenue estimated at $50 million. Client base: wealthy individuals needing transplants who can't or won't wait for legitimate donors. Politicians, celebrities, business leaders who've destroyed their organs through lifestyle choices and want discreet replacements." The images that accompanied the report were nauseating. Clinical photographs of surgical procedures performed on unwilling victims, financial records showing payments for specific organs, and video footage that confirmed the commercial nature of the operations. Eliminating Yamamoto wouldn't just save the immediate victims, Melissa continued. It would send a message to every other trafficking network that no operation is too large or well protected to be vulnerable. Dale closed the tablet, his decision made. Start planning. Full operational deployment, maximum impact, complete elimination of the network. That's not a small operation, Dale. Yamamoto has government protection, Yakuza connections, and international clients with their own security arrangements. We'll need a larger team and significant resources. Then we'll recruit a larger team and commit whatever resources are necessary. Melissa smiled with genuine admiration. You've changed since we started this partnership. 6 months ago, you were a businessman seeking revenge for a personal attack. Now you're becoming something much more dangerous. I'm becoming what Emma needs me to be. And what's that? Dale looked back at his daughter, who was now reading a book in 3 languages simultaneously, a skill that never failed to amaze him. A father who understands that protection requires more than just defensive measures. Sometimes you have to eliminate threats before they can develop. The Tokyo operation will establish us as a global force, Melissa said. After Yamamoto falls, every trafficking network in the world will know we exist and will be actively hunting us. Good. Let them hunt. It will make identifying and eliminating them much easier. As if sensing their conversation, Emma looked up from her book and waved at them through the glass. Her smile was radiant, innocent, and completely trusting. The smile of a child who believed her father could protect her from anything. Dale waved back, making a silent promise that her faith would never be disappointed. The world was full of monsters who preyed on children like Emma, but those monsters were about to discover that someone was hunting them with unlimited resources, military precision, and absolutely no mercy. The conversation was interrupted by Dale's secure phone. Corey Crane's voice carried unusual urgency. "Boss, we've got a situation. Multiple intelligence agencies are starting to connect our operations. Someone leaked information about Prague, and they're building a pattern analysis." "Which agencies?" "FBI, Interpol, and what looks like a joint task force including representatives from every country where we've operated." Dale felt the familiar tightening in his chest that preceded major tactical decisions. Discovery by law enforcement would complicate their operations, but wouldn't necessarily end them. Governments had their own reasons for wanting trafficking networks eliminated, even if they couldn't officially sanction the methods required. Assessment. Mixed. Some of them want to arrest us, others want to recruit us, and a few seem interested in just staying out of our way. The problem is coordination. They're starting to share information about our methods and targets. Dale made his decision with the same calm precision that had characterized every major choice in his life. Initiate Protocol 9. Full diplomatic engagement, complete transparency about our humanitarian objectives, and formal partnership offers for agencies that demonstrate appropriate cooperation. You want to legitimize the operation? I want to control it. Better to have governments as partners than as adversaries. After ending the call, Dale turned to Melissa, who had been listening with growing excitement. You're not just eliminating trafficking networks, she said with admiration. You're building something larger. An international coalition dedicated to protecting children through any means necessary. Emma deserves to grow up in a world where monsters are afraid of the consequences of their actions. And you're prepared to become the consequence? Dale looked out over the harbor, where yachts worth hundreds of millions of dollars floated peacefully in the evening light. In one of those vessels, he knew there were probably victims being transported or clients planning their next atrocity. The beautiful surface-massed horrors that most people couldn't imagine. I already am the consequence, he said quietly. The question now is whether the world is ready for what comes next. Emma's laughter echoed from the music room as she discovered something amusing in her multilingual book. The sound was pure joy, unmarked by any knowledge of the darkness that surrounded their perfect life. Dale Matthews had begun this journey seeking revenge against two people who'd betrayed his family. Now he was becoming something unprecedented, a global force dedicated to protecting innocence through the systematic elimination of those who would destroy it. The architect's design had evolved far beyond his original blueprints. He was no longer just building security for his daughter. He was building a new world order where children like Emma could grow up safe, protected by a father who'd proven there were no limits to what he would sacrifice or whom he would destroy to keep them secure. The kingdom was complete, and Dale Matthews ruled it with absolute authority, unlimited resources, and the unshakable conviction that some evils could only be answered with overwhelming force. Emma was safe. The monsters were afraid, and the world was slowly becoming the place she deserved to inherit. The new kingdom had been built on blood and justice, and it would endure for as long as Dale Matthews drew breath to protect it. And there you have it. Another story comes to an end. What did you think? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoy this story, consider joining our community by subscribing. It means the world to us. For more stories like this one, check out the recommended videos on screen, and I'll see you there.